Okay, so let's go on to the next component, the InstallFree Management Console, or simply IFMC. The IFMC is InstallFree's management console, and it allows IT managers to take separately packaged AODs and organize them into logical entities such as virtual application packages, which include an application AOD and possibly separately packaged add-ons, updates, and dependencies. The applications can then be grouped into containers, which ease management, and can also be used for advanced interconnectivity between virtual applications. Once the applications and containers have been set up, the IT administrator can use the Active Directory tree to assign these applications to any object found in that tree. And the fact that the AD tree is read and presented exactly as it shows up in AD itself means that no additional adjustments need to be made or users added. But another powerful thing is the fact that objects inherit applications and settings from higher objects in the tree. Meaning that if you assign an application package to a domain, for instance, or an organizational unit, all the objects, whether computers or users, will inherit the applications. This also goes for configurations such as online and offline availability, non-domain availability, and usage limitations. And the same transitive feature is also utilized in the applications tree. So making configuration adjustments to an application's container will influence all the applications that populate it. Other than that, the IFMC allows a myriad of extra configurations and settings that can influence anything from how the application integrates into its non-virtual environment to the most minute of details, such as the application's process name. The IFMC even allows you to create intricate rules that will allow the client to apply different configurations for different scenarios. For instance, which file share to connect to under different IP addresses range, and even based on the host's OS version for cases in which the applications should be configured differently when working off a terminal server, for instance, as opposed to a regular desktop machine. And now, let's take a look on how the IFMC functions and works. Okay, so first of all, you can see up here the AD tree, which is read directly from the AD schema found on my AD server. You can see the domain, the different OUs, and the users that populate them. You can also see here groups and their members in the tree itself. Now, let's go to the IFV applications tree, where all the applications are organized. Now, if I click the file share tree root, you can see all the AODs stored on my file share. And in the IFV applications tree, you can see how these AODs are organized into application packages. And if I'll click the container here, you will see the applications that populate it. Okay, so now let's go and add the Firefox AOD I've created previously and see how it looks. So I'll right click the container because that's where I want the application to be. Select New Application Package, click Next here, click Next again, and browse to find the AOD package I want to add. Click Open. Now I'll just change the package's name. And click Next. Now here IFMC asks me if I want to add any of the default and commonly used expansions available for virtual applications in general for different purposes. The SE Launch AOD, for instance, that is marked here, is responsible for several interconnectivity purposes, so I'll leave it on and just click Next. Now, at this point, IFMC alerts me that the container into which I'm adding the application is already assigned to a user, and asks me if I want to assign this application to. But at this point, I'll leave it and just press Next again. Press Finish here, and wait for the package to be processed and copied into the file share. And you can see the package was added to the tree here. And here you can see all the different shortcuts found in the AOD. And the Allocations tab, which is now empty, can show me which AD objects the application is assigned to. Now, if I wanted to, I could have assigned the application from here. But for this demo, I'll show you the Manage Applications window in the AD tree itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the application to the entire domain, so all the users will have access to this Firefox package. So, I'll right-click Domain Controllers here, choose Manage IFV Applications, and you can see here in the window the IFV application tree. So I'll expand it and mark the checkbox next to Firefox. Click OK, and that's it. And you can see in the right pane here which applications are assigned to this AD object, in this case the domain controllers. And if I'll click any child object, you can see the same application with a blue background, which means the applications are inherited from a higher object. And now let's go to my demo user. And you can see that apart from the Firefox, which he has inherited from the domain controllers, he also has access to a virtual Excel viewer, which I've added previously. And the white background means that it's not inherited from anywhere. And here's the Firefox package, and you can see under the expansions folder the SE launch add-on that I've added when I created the package a few minutes ago. But you should remember that this is only a logical entity and not a real package. This means that all these objects are downloaded separately and converge at runtime on the endpoint. Okay, so we're done with that. And now let's see some of the configurations available in IFMC. And I'll start with the Properties window of the Firefox package I've added. And you can see here that I can select a specific engine if I wish, a different base. If I have a new version of an AOD, I can also select it here, and even another language version of the application. And down here you can see that I can determine whether this AOD will be available offline, online, or by streaming. And I can do the same with the user data, which contains all of the customizations the user has done. Now, if I'll click the Advanced button here, you can see all the different configurations that I can set, such as the process name, or even add 16-bit capabilities for 16-bit applications. Okay, now let's switch to the ADM tab. And you can see up here that I can add a regular ADM that will be enforced on the application itself. And down here I can manage the different interconnectivity aspects of the application. So I'll uncheck the checkbox here, click the Custom button, and as you can see, you can really control almost any aspect regarding how the application interacts with its environment. Okay, now let's see some of the configurations that I can associate with AD objects. And remember again that any configuration I make to a higher object will be inherited by all its child objects. So I'll go to the AD tree, right-click, Properties, and in the Bridge Properties tab you can see how I can associate specific client configurations with specific AD objects. And you can see that I can change the Bridge Virtual Client version. I can make sure this object won't inherit any configurations from higher objects. I can enable the client to work on non-domain machines, for instance if the user is working from home. And down here you can see I can determine time usage limitations. For instance, this field will make sure that the Bridge Virtual Agent will stop working at a specific date. And this field allows me to configure how many days the bridge will work if it didn't connect to the file share. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the more intricate settings I can manipulate. And let's start with the configurations of the bridge client itself. So I'll right-click the Bridges branch, select Properties, And you can see here all the different options available for me to tweak. And this includes everything from the path used to connect to the file share, system timers that define when the bridge should update itself, the storage paths on endpoints, and even control whether virtual applications that are configured to do so would run at startup. But as you know, different computing scenarios require different configurations, and that is what the connection manager is for. So let's take a look at it. I'll just close this, right-click the Bridges branch again, select Connection Manager, and you can see here the conditions list that make up the rule. In this case, I have the domain condition on, this non-equal sign, and in the field here I can type a domain name. So I'll type my domain name here. And now the condition that is set is if the domain name which the bridge is logged onto is not mycompany.com. And you can see up here in the drop-down menu I can add more conditions such as IP address range, OS version, and more. And whenever the conditions I've set are met, the settings I choose in the Configurations tab will take effect. So let's go to the Configurations tab, and you can see here all the different settings that were available in the main bridge properties window. And in this case, since my condition is if the domain does not equal my company, I'll make sure the configurations tells the bridge to connect to a different file share. In this case, an HTTP path to my IIS server. Okay, so let's close this. And now let's review the last component, which is the bridge virtual client itself.